Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Param Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Yom Abda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatosh Maham Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste, welcome. We are back with our Drsya. Unless you guys have a different idea. Does anybody have any good questions or bad questions? Yes, Mark?
No, I haven't got any questions, Linda.
Okay. Okay, so we begin from the verse 16. So we remember last class that the closing of the last words of Swami Paramarthananda when he was doing a recap of the verse 15. He says that I am the consciousness principle and the mind. No, it's not. We saw that the Avarana Shakti causes confusion at the external level and as well in the internal level. At the external level, we make a confusion. We see Jagata, but we don't see Brahman as the substratum of Jagata. We can't see, we see the world, and a lot of the people cannot even see the intelligence of the Lord sustaining the world. So we make confusion externally as well. And he was unfolding the teachings that Jivavarana causes also a confusion internally. Internally, we make a confusion between what? Between consciousness and my intellect, my mind. So I take my mind to be consciousness, and it's amazing. All over the internet, everybody refers to the mind as consciousness, especially nowadays that there is so much of this people offering some comfort, saying that, oh, you are consciousness and you're going to go to a superior dimension and so on. Don't worry if things get tough here. No, we're going to transfer you upstairs. So it reminds me of Swami Paramarthananda say, just hold on to the I am feeling thought. And then when you least expect, you're going to be transferred to the absolute. So there is confusion in both levels, the external and the internal. And the external level is the first step, as we know, by the grace of Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of Lord Krishna. We know that we need to understand that there is a creator here. And then we start seeing Jagata, but we start seeing Ishvara as well. This is the first step of understanding that there is the world. The world is fundamentally Ishvara, which is fundamentally is Brahman. So, and then there is no confusion. And I don't get into these funny notions that the world is real and Brahman or consciousness, existence or consciousness, let's say, is something that comes out of Jagat, or existence comes out of Jagat. Jagat is, therefore existence is, So we know that this confusion is very common. But when we get in contact with the teachings of Ishvara, the teachings of Karma Dharma, and then we start learning, developing these eyes that can see the Lord manifest as the world, with its beauty and its intelligence, and then there is cruelty and pain, yes, but that is due to non-observance of the Lord and it is laws, because the non-compliance with the laws is what brings about this ugly and violent and difficult conditions we experience in the Dharma field lately. But this is one thing on the external level. The internal level, it's difficult to say if it is more subtle or less subtle, but it is difficult to see, consciousness as something free and independent from the mind, from the intellect, So this is due to Avarana Shakti. Okay. So the cause is Brahman, the effect is Mithya. So not knowing the difference of the two levels is the cause of samsara. Why? We take things upside down, we see the world as real, we see the existence consciousness as a byproduct of the world, and then we chase the world due to this inability to understand, Brahman as the substratum of the world, not as a byproduct of the world. Existence consciousness is the substratum of Jagat, not the byproduct of Jagat. And then this confusion makes us to do what? We chase the objects of Jagata as a means to find completion and satisfaction and peace and resolution. So, and then as it says here, this confusion is the cause of samsara. Brahman alone can give security, but not knowing that we make this confusion, blunder is mistake. Not knowing that we make a mistake independent of the world for security is a huge problem. We expect support from people, objects, place, and circumstance. All the suffering is because we expect security from the insecure world. And this is called samsara. It's another angle for us to understand samsara. So we expect the world of the objects to be real and provide us with security and peace and satisfaction and happiness. And then it says that the author is going to explain it better from now on. So that is somewhat exciting. The verse 16 says that the subtle body includes approximation to the witness and identified with the gross body due to the influence of the reflection of consciousness, shines and becomes the individual or the empirical embodied self. This is so beautiful and so profound. So I haven't had the time to look through, to read it a little bit, but we're gonna do a good job together. You help me. I was busy with my project here in my land. The subtle body is something very close to consciousness, as we know. And there is a very intimate relationship, so quote unquote, between the two, because the subtle body is going to attract consciousness as it seems, quote unquote, and consciousness, every time it pervades the subtle body, it shines with reflected consciousness. So sometimes in a playful way, I say that consciousness has a certain affinity for subtle bodies. Why? Because it can show up to the body as reflected consciousness, right? Are you following? Are you listening to me? Yeah. So sometimes I put it in those terms, but don't take it literally, okay? So the subtle body is in close proximity to consciousness, which is present here as the witness. And then we have to say the witnessing conscious non-entity, which is not a non-experienced entity called consciousness. Okay. And then when this witness, when this subtle body, which is a synonymous as well as the mind, as the intellect, when this subtle body produces this reflection due to the pervasiveness of consciousness, which is present as the witness, so the subtle body is going to shine with reflected consciousness, and almost invariably it identifies with the gross body. So this is something that happens. It seems that happens even with the avatars, even when they come down, they don't fall, they descend for some mission. Even in those cases, it seems that Avarana, for some time, hides the truth, and the identification with the physical body comes to surface. It's an eternal, beginningless piece of ignorance. But then the avatars, very soon, the knowledge comes to their conscious mind. Once the conscious mind is adult, is properly developed, and then he undo that confusion. So the subtle body, in close proximity, intimately pervaded by consciousness, produces this witnessing conscious reflected principle. But this consciousness immediately identifies reflected consciousness and identified with the gross body, due to the influence of the reflection of consciousness. So I jumped the gun a little bit because he was presenting here that I was saying that the subtle body is very close proximity with consciousness and identified with the gross body. Okay, it's putting that the subtle body is identified with the gross body. As we know in our language, often we say that subtle body is the jiva. Subtle body is reflected consciousness. But if we take it literally here, the subtle body is identified with the gross body. The subtle body does not identify, it cannot disidentify. The subtle body is inert energy, inert matter. Okay, are we on the same page here? Okay, so the subtle body, is so intimately pervaded by consciousness, and it identifies with the gross body. And then in the following phrase, it somehow clears this confusion. And this is due to the influence of reflection of consciousness. So the reflection, of course, in the subtle body shines with reflected consciousness. It becomes the individual, or the empirical embodied self. So different phrasing here to describe the phenomenon that happens once consciousness shines on subtle bodies. So, but this one here, this verse, which is related to the individual, of course, the individual or the empirical embodied self, it refers to the human jivas only, because only the human jivas somehow, it's difficult to put it in absolute terms. The human jiva for sure identifies with the gross body. So can we say that cats identify with the physical body, for example? Yes and no. I mean, on an unconscious mind, it's going to run to keep, to survive. If there is a threat, it's going to do everything possible to protect its physical body. So is it identified with the physical body? Somehow, yes, unconsciously, of course, subconsciously. But there is a sense that I am this body, therefore I will do everything on my part to protect this physical body. But more specifically here, the identification with the gross body refers to the conscious jivas, the human consciousness. Why? It says here that there is an influence of reflect consciousness. Reflect consciousness is the jiva, is consciousness, which appears shining in this mirror-like reflector called the subtle body. And then we have the becoming of the individual, or the embodied self, the individual self or the embodied self. Okay. So anybody has anything to say about this beautiful verse? Sylvia, can I ask you to bring me a glass of water because I forgot? Okay. Here the author explains the cause of samsara due to two mistakes. One is the internal subjective level, and the other on the external. At the internal, we have seen it. It's a recap again. I will know that I am ever secure and full. So at the internal level, I know that I am consciousness. In the internal level, if I know that I am consciousness, if I know that I am consciousness, thank you. At the internal level, if I know that I am consciousness, I will never require support from anyone or anything, because I will know that I'm the very source of fullness, security, and satisfaction and peace. So I will not chase and cling to objects. When I do not know that I am this free consciousness, I make a misjudgment. First, I make the mistake that requires support. I require support. I need. Now we are needy. Jiva, human jivas are needy. It's so funny. We have this sense of lack, the neediness, and wanting things. So it is a mistake in self-judgment. It is a misjudgment. I tend to believe that I require help and support and security from the external world. Second, I think that I'm going to get that support from the world. He split in two things. I feel insecure, and then I project security in the others. And then the second step is to believe that if I get support from the world, I will be okay. And then I seek support from the perishable world, people, possessions, power, circumstance. The first mistake is the subjective mistake. Very nice. The first mistake is the subjective mistake. What is that? I take myself to be very, very insecure, vulnerable, incomplete, inadequate, insecure. This is the first thing. This is totally a subjective assessment. You take yourself. Your mind tells you that you're incomplete and you're insecure. And of course, it's a cultural thing that goes beyond cultures, even because all cultures have that background of eternal, beginningless ignorance. Ignorance in respect of our true nature, which is full, whole, and complete, and the very source of satisfaction and security. So this is a subjective mistake. The first is a subjective mistake. The second is the objective mistake, and that is what leads to samsara. First, I believe that I don't have it. And then I project that the world has it, and then I go chasing the world, and then I get into the Samsara problem. The author is explaining this in a more technical language. Oh, I'm looking forward. I am the Sakshi Chaitanya consciousness, and the subtle body, especially the mind, is appearing as an object in front of me. The mind is associated with the gross body. The mind-body complex, so the mind-body mixture is ever insecure. So there is no body-mind mixture or apparatus or construct that does not feel insecure. Even those big guys that shows, and they like to show that they are powerful and secure, but inside, as we know, even the president of the United States, especially the previous one, was very insecure inside, because every human jiva is insecure. So, where I am. I will never have, this mind-body complex can never have freedom. And it's always subject to time, place, and prarabdha karma. So we don't have control over our prarabdha karma. We can influence our prarabdha karma, but it's like planting some seeds, not knowing when they are going to fructify. If you have a piece of land, and then you say, okay, so I'm going to plant these beautiful trees and so on, but they take 300 years to grow up and to provide something, some benefit. So the person usually says, I'm not going to enjoy it. Why I'm going to plant these big trees? No. Oh, no, you do it for the next generation. And the person, I don't know about that. I'm not really sure. So we don't have control over our prarabdha karma, although we can influence our prarabdha karma with our thoughts and words and deeds, of course, not knowing exactly when we're going to, to reap those fruits, punya. This mind-body complex can never have freedom because it's always subject to time and space, place. So time is a big thing, as we know, because the body-mind complex, as soon as it grows up a little bit, it understands that everybody has a birth date and how you say in English, the death date. How you say the death date?
Punch your ticket.
Here in Português we call atestado de nascimento e atestado de óbito. Óbito é a data, dizer assim, now this person is gone. Don't look for this person, because this person is gone. And then don't give them more pension because the person is not existing anymore. Don't give the pension to this person because the family is going to take the money, but the person is dead. So we become aware of this time problem and this space limitation as well, as we have seen before. It is this body-mind complex that's called Vyavaharika Jiva, or Ahamkara, the ego, the doer, the experience, and the samsari. But not all jivas are samsaris, as we know. And there is a transitional time in which the samsari is becoming yoni. And then, although he may still have some confusion operating, it's no longer a hankara or ego or samsari. It is an inquirer. It is a seeker of moksha. The Sakshi lend reflected consciousness to the jiva and enliven the jiva. The jiva does not have any freedom because the mind is affected by the subconscious, the unconscious, and the latent impressions from prior births. So, okay, here there is some material for us here. So we talk a lot about free will. Yeah? Free will is a certain freedom of choice. Yeah? You say this jiva does not have any freedom. Or we could say it does not really have much of a free will. Why? Because the mind is under the influence of its subconscious mind. It's under the influence of the unconscious mind, and it's under the influences of the tendency, the latent impressions from prior births. So it does not help to go and do 10 years of therapy, because the therapy is not going to take you into previous births. So there is a lot of material there, making it difficult for us to exercise our choice, our free will, in support to our spiritual elevation. A lot of the time we want to move in a certain direction, but there are some force pressing us, obstructing us. We see it a lot. I will never have this freedom. Why? Because I'm too complex. The soul is too complex. It does not resume itself in this birth. It goes to many other births. There is a lot of that material influencing my thoughts, feelings, emotions, words, and actions. While living in the world, the mind has to go through the 3 states of experience. As we know, all the 3 spaces of experiences associated with the states cannot be avoided. So on top of that, we go through these 3 states of experiences, and they cannot be avoided. And we're gonna have to go through certain experience while we dream and while we are awake. When we are sleeping, we have a break. That's why we enjoy it so much. And then in those 2 states, we are somehow associated with experiencing the world. The body-mind complex cannot stop any of these processes because it is its nature. The nature of the jiva is to experience. And what happens when we experience? We are just, collecting more and more impressions that are going to fit into our subconscious mind, unconscious mind, and our vasana load, our tendencies. The body-mind complex cannot stop this process because it is the nature. It is its nature. So Ishvara has created things, has designed things this way. Now we have no power over this. The only way to escape is to disidentify from the body-mind complex and claiming that I am the limitless Sakshi. So there is nothing new to wise here. And the only consideration here is that disidentifying from the body-mind complex in a way that we can efficaciously claim our identity as Satchitananda, requires a certain qualifications, preparation. And in order to prepare, to qualify, we need to work out the levels of experience and to a certain degree, even our tendencies. It's not that we can say, oh, okay, now I got it. The only thing left to do is to disidentify from the body-mind and claim my identity as Sakshi. So a lot of people sees it as a shortcut and say, oh, this is clear to me, it's the most direct thing. I just do it, so I don't need to work on my mind, my subconscious mind, and my vasanas, okay? Let them be there, and I don't need to purify this body-mind complex. No, the purification of the body-mind complex is part of the preparedness or preparation for this body-mind complex so that it gets refined and subtle and contemplative enough so that efficaciously it can disidentify from the body-mind and identify and claim its identity as conscious existence, okay? In order to do that, I should know that I am not the mind. The reason that I do not this is because Avarana Shakti is considering this truth. So I'm not the mind, I'm not the body, I am this free, limitless consciousness. Avarana is somehow concealing this truth from me, and then I'm mixing up myself with the body-mind. I take my mind to be myself and the body to be an extension of myself. And the reason is this beginningless ignorance, okay? We can see it as Avarana Shakti. We can see it as Maya with its two powers, Vikshepa and Avarana, because projection also hides this truth or conceals this truth from us. No, we cannot see it, and then we project the self in the world, in Jagata, in the objects, as meaning to say satisfaction and security we project on the object. So how can we stop all of this? Here it says the body-mind complex cannot stop any of this because it is its nature. Its nature is to experience, okay? The only way to escape is to disidentify. Since I have to experience and I have no say in all of this because that belongs to Ishvara, I was designed to experience in this realm of duality. So I better get a certain understanding, which will gradually prepare my mind so that I claim my identity as limitless consciousness, okay? And by doing that, for doing that, I need to see the body-mind complex as the instrument by which I, Sakshi Chaitanya, experience the world of duality. To do that, I should know that I'm not the body-mind. The reason I do not manage to do this is because of Avarana Shakti is concealing this truth. Anything from you? Okay. Let me cover myself because I was hot outside, but now I'm feeling a little cold. The verse 17, the jivahood, finitude. The jivahood of the jiva appears in the witness also due to the superimposition. But when the veil is destroyed, the difference between becomes clear, and that notion of finitude goes away. So the jiva, as we know, by nature feels limited by its structure, by its configuration, by its properties. It feels finite due to the time, space, and so many different aspects. So it does not feel like I am eternal jiva. Although we have this concept in Vedanta, there is an eternal jiva, but the jiva, the individual, the ego, never feels to be eternal because it believes that the jiva is not eternal because he has superimposed the jiva on the body, the atma of the jiva on the body and the mind. So the jivahood, that entity that feels finite, the jivahood of the jiva appears in the witness also due to superimposition. So now we have the principle of witness here, this term describing consciousness, and the jiva is an object which appears in consciousness, and the consciousness is not really objectifying the jivahood, much less the jiva and its feeling of smallness and finitude. But we say that it appears within consciousness and it's due to superimposition. So I'm curious to see how he's going to unfold this one. Because we know that everything is a superimposition in consciousness. And the jiva appears in consciousness, and the jiva appears to feel finite and small and limited. And it's all appearing in consciousness. But consciousness is not a knowing, experiencing agent. The scriptures put it very clear. It is a non-experiencing, witnessing conscious principle. It's not an experience. It's non-experiencing, non-knowing. In not knowing, it does not see anything. Okay. So how so does the finited and limited jiva appears in consciousness? So can you tell me that contradiction in your view, Claudio? Claudio, I like to pull the leg of Claudio. I don't know why. But so how can we explain this apparent contradiction here? So there is the jiva appears within consciousness, and consciousness is not a knowing, experiencing entity. Yet the scripture says again and again, although it's not a knowing, experiencing entity, that the jiva appears within consciousness. So how so? And who am I to know that? And by which means I know that, if consciousness does not know anything? But we know that there is a certain superimposition. And why? How so we know that there is a superimposition? Because I do it. I superimpose the body, mind on consciousness. And I say all over the place that my consciousness is growing, expanding, and so on. And why? Because I'm superimposing the mind, the body-mind complex on consciousness. And we know that it's due to a superimposition. And then it appears in consciousness, but there is no entity in consciousness to see that. And then who sees this superimposition? And then when the veil is destroyed, the difference becomes clear, and that notion of finitude, limitation, is destroyed, goes away. So we need to understand the nature of satya, the nature of mithya, the nature of free, limitless consciousness, and the nature of the mind and the body, physical body, So the body-mind complex. When we understand that, satya and mithya, and we know the difference, and then all is clear, and this notion of being limited, finite, goes away. So how can this notion go away? So when I understand the difference, I can understand the difference. I can say, okay, I understood the difference. There is such a thing as consciousness, and there is such a thing as the mind, intellect, and the physical body. So I understand the difference. This difference became clear. And then how so this notion of finitude goes away? A lot of people understand the difference. But not necessarily the sense of finitude goes away. And how so consciousness is going to witness the limited jiva, with this feeling of finitude, because it appears in consciousness, and it is superimposed in consciousness. It appears in consciousness, and consciousness cannot see, know, or experience that. So how so? The scriptures say that, and how can we access this and take it to be a fact that I appear in consciousness, and how so after having made a clear difference between myself, consciousness, and the body-mind complex. I'm clear about that. How so my notion of limitation and finitude did not go away yet. So, anything from you guys?
I'm wondering if there is that free will aspect in Jnana Yoga through Nididhyasana. One just has to, as you said, so often claim. And so through scriptural authority and understanding and clearing doubts.
Yeah. That is what makes sense in this double statement here, So once I claim myself to be the witness, non-experienced, conscious subject principle, I claim it. So how do I claim it? So Lynn is saying, so you can accept the authority of the scriptures. This is good to begin with, but then this has to go beyond this shredder, and it has to be what we call a parokshayana, direct, firm conviction that I am Sakshi Chaitanya, consciousness, okay? So once I know that I am Sakshi Chaitanya, and then what happens? I know that my jiva appears within me, because it is the intellect holding this knowledge, the intellect of the Jnani. What is the difference between the intellect of the Jnani and the intellect of the Aniyani? The intellect of the Aniyani, it sees itself as the body and the mind. The intellect of Jnani sees itself as consciousness. And then if it sees itself as consciousness, of course, it is going to see the body-mind as an object occurring within himself or itself. Because I have assumed, I have claimed, embraced my true identity. It's again and again, it all depends on this shift of identity, which depends on a lot of Shradana, Manana, and Nididhyasana and meditation until this click, of understanding happens. And then we know, and then it makes sense, that, okay, I, the jiva, feeling finite and limited, I have been superimposed myself on consciousness, but now I have understood my true nature as consciousness, and then the jiva appears, as an object within myself. So, and here it says, when the veiling power is destroyed, this difference becomes clear. Which difference? Between Sakshi Chaitanya, consciousness, and the jiva, the body-mind complex. So you understand the difference. One is consciousness, existence itself, and the other is the instrument by which conscious existence experiences this apparent dualistic order of reality. And then, as a result, because we have claimed, we have understood, and we have claimed due to my own work in contemplating meditating on the words of the scripture. And then I transfer my identity, I shift my identity to limitless consciousness. And then what happens to my notion of finitude? Finitude. Finitude? It goes away.
Either way.
Either way? Okay. So what happens with that feeling? It goes away. And that's the only promise that the scripture says. So you're going to remain as a jiva but knowing that you are paramatma. And then somehow the jiva is going to be free from the feeling of finitude and limitation. Why? Because it understood it is limitless nature, and this understanding follows the jiva in its transactions in a way that it somehow insulates the jiva, the yoni, from this confusion, which is the cause of samsara, which brings about suffering and fear and insecurity, and chasing and frustration and so on. Very nice verse. Let's see what Swami says here. Because of the ignorance of the fact that I am consciousness, and that the mind is an object appearing in me, different from me, I identify with the mind and thought, and I am the mind and I am the body. How do I know that I am committing this mistake? That's a good question. So whenever the body has some problem, I never say that the body has the problem, but I say I have a problem. Very simple, huh? And many times we must say I have a problem. For example, we go to the doctor and the doctor asks you, so what's your problem, my dear? You never say like the body has a problem. I don't have any problem, because the doctor is going to believe that you're a little bit strange. So a lot of the time we say, but within ourselves, for ourselves, the way we think, oh, I got sick, or say, oh my God, I got sick. I have a problem. So this subjective reality is the most important. It's not what we say. Because there is a lot of people faking. And there is an expression of faking until you make it. But there are people who is faking it for lifetimes, pretending to be consciousness, going around, saying, I'm not the body, and so on. But that does not do unless one does proper nidhyasana. So if we find ourselves saying again and again, I have a problem, my body is ill, and this and that. And if we say that for ourselves with worry and concern, and then we know that I'm mixing up things here, I'm superimposed the body on myself. Whenever the body has some problem, I never should say that the body has a problem, but I say that I have the problem. Whenever the body has a problem, okay. That's when we know we are superimposed. Whenever the mind has any disturbance, we usually do not say that the mind is disturbed, but I say I am disturbed. That is a common one. The mind is disturbed. I say, oh my God, I'm so disturbed today. Oh my God, I'm so rajasic. I'm so tamasic. And it's a language thing, but a lot of the time. Behind that saying, a lot of the time there is some confusion, some forgetfulness that could occur even sometimes in the mind of a yoni. Okay, this ignorance is hardwired. This total identification leads to the status of what we call samsari. So the samsara problem of the body-mind complex is wrongly superimposed on the consciousness, even though I do not have those problems. So consciousness has no problem. The body-mind may have some disturbance, some problems, but you see it objectively. This is the only freedom we have, because problems will never disappear. Life is nothing but dealing with problems. Have you noticed that? It's only dealing with problems. One time I had, many years back, before I got into Vedanta and so on, I had somebody telling me, oh, you want to avoid problems. So how big is your problem? I say, oh, no, it's small. They say, so get a big problem, you know? The bigger the problem, the stronger you're going to become. And know that life is only about dealing with problems, okay? But don't have these small little problems. Oh, I don't have the money to pay the electrical bill. I have a huge problem, you know? So go for something so difficult that you're going to find obstacles, such as searching for moksha, you know, and say, now I have a problem. What is your problem? Oh, I discovered that I'm suffering from samsara. And so did you find a remedy? Yes, but it seems not to be so easy to cure this illness, you know. And I say, this is a good problem, okay? So just, it's going to make you stronger, and eventually it's going to make you free from the disease. This is called Dharma Adhyasa, transference of the properties of one thing into another. The example given is the colorless crystal and the red flower, as we know. So it's a classic analogy of Vedanta. It's known as how you say, the proximity, and then the property transfer. It's a upadi. Yeah?
Upadi, yeah.
Upadi. So transference of the property. So we have the colorless crystal and the red flower. The red flower transfers to the crystal. So we have the jiva, which is a configuration that depends on the configuration of the subtle body. And then the jiva is going to feel limit and so on. And then it's going to transfer to the self. It's very self. They say, I myself. So what's happening? There is a transfer of what belongs to the body-mind complex to the self. The same way the transfer occurs between the redness. The redness is transferred to the crystal clear crystal. So the same way the redness, which is the effects of samsara, it creates a redness, you know, it's transferred for the self, and then the self says, oh, I'm having so much problems here. It is a transfer. Okay.
Why do you think it's Dharma Adhyasa?
Well, I believe that, I don't know. So it is a misapprehension of something. It is a confusion, huh? I don't know why Dharma is in there. So if anyone feels inclined to do some research, let's see. Let's try to understand this Dharma Adhyasa, why they call this confusion, this superimposition, or transference of properties from one thing to another.
Dharma is, well, Dharma has so many different meanings, but
yeah,
it's right knowledge in the sense, right understanding, scriptural.
Seeing this phenomenal world for what it is, and understanding its laws, because it's so easy to be deceived, with all this transfer. So Dharma is often said to be a structure of laws and values, and so in that sense, You know, we may not see the Dharma with its laws clearly for what it is. It could be something on that line. So likewise, our problems are because the false transference, instead of knowing the false transference as a false transference, I go on trying to remove the problems. Just imagine getting a crystal clear and trying to, oh no, oh my God, something happened with my crystal, my clear crystal here. And this morning when I go there to see, it is red. So, and then I go there with soap, water, and sponge, and I try to remove the redness. So it's not very smart, as we know. And instead of seeing the falsity of the redness in the crystal, what I do, I try to remove the redness, instead of seeing the problems that I have superimposed on myself as false, because myself is free of problems. No, I go about trying to remove the redness of the crystal. I try about to work in samsara to remove this feeling, remove this sense of smallness, limitation, and finitude. It's a transfer. So we see what it is. We see that the transfer is false. It's an apparent superimposition. It's an apparent projection. Okay. So I am free from everything, from all projections, all superimpositions. But instead, I go on trying to remove the problems, remove these projections. And the only way is to understand that the projection is something that's not really real. And like that, the redness of the crystal will never go with a sponge, soap, and water, because they were not really transferred to the crystal, but they are falsely transferred upon me, consciousness. I go on trying. Not only that, but I keep complaining to God that my efforts are not giving results. That's a bad situation when people start. Usually they complain about God, and then when you see, they become anti-God. They say, God does not exist, God cannot solve these problems because I do not really have these problems. And everybody's asking favors to God in that sense, remove this problem, remove that problem, and God is there. You don't have a problem, my dear. Try to understand Sach and Mitya, and then understand the Dharma, the structure, and then you're going to better understand the transfer of attributes from matter into the spirit, which is your true nature, and be free as the spirit. And God cannot do anything. And he cannot stop what Maya is doing, because Maya is unstoppable. There is no solving the problem, but only the solving the problems by understanding. Understanding what? Understand what is Satya, the only reality, understand the superimposition of this apparent reality, which is created by the properties and attributes that begins with the three gunas and the elements and so on. Everything is designed and colored by attributes, and these attributes appears in consciousness, it reflects in the mirror of consciousness, and then it makes what? Makes consciousness look as if those attributes are affecting consciousness, having an impact in consciousness, right? This is Vedanta, understanding the superimposition and the freedom of this consciousness on which this superimposition was made. Instead of trying to solve the problems, I should raise a question as to whether I have these problems. Ramana Maharaj asked, can I go on for another 5 or 10? Claudio? Mark? Okay. Instead of trying to solve the problems, I should raise a question as to whether I have this problem. Ramana Maharaj, because when I hear him mentioning Ramana Maharaj, I say, oh, I want to know. That may be fun. Ramana Maharaj asked the seekers who came to him with questions about their problems. And then, oh, I have so much problems, Bhagwan, my wife, my children, my grandchildren, my mother-in-law, and my business. It's too much. Let me tell you my problems because I came here to solve my problems. And then after saying everything to Ramana, and then Ramana would give a nice answer with a solution. He says, who has the problems? So the seeker would get confused and say, I have the problem. Then Maharaj would say, okay, Maharishi, Ramana Maharaj would say, okay, I have the problem. Then what is this I? Try to understand this I. What is this I? What is this word I represents? Okay, you're saying that I have the problem. So what is this I? Who are you? What is this I? The answer will invariably display the confusion about one's identity and the superimposition of the body-mind complex on consciousness. Then Ramana will ask them to sort out that confusion. Go back home, go back and look for the I and tell me the I, if the I is the one having the problems, okay? Find out the I who has the problem, and then come here and present the I who has the problem, and then I will give you the solution. I will give you the remedy. And then, of course, the devotees would go home, would get it or not get it, but they would, avoid having to go back to say, no, I mean, I did not find the I, or I found the I, but I still have a problem. So either he gets it or he does not get it. But anyhow, he could come back, not right away, but 6 months later on with another list of problems to Ramana. When such a line of inquiry is done, the problematic I, the suffering I, disappears, resolves. The ignorance is gone by Shravana and Manana. Shravana is consistent and systematic study of the Vedantic scriptures for a length of time under the guidance of a competent acharya. And this is very important. Sometimes I tell to my people in Brazil, you say that for a length of time under the guidance of a competent acharya who is not dead, who is alive. Because old gurus, people love old gurus. Why? First, because I don't need to report or ask questions or present my understanding. And I can take all my understandings to be correct, and not only that, I can distortion. I can distort the understanding of the words of the guru, and not be in contact with the guru because he died 200, 300, 500 years ago. Nobody's going to be there to correct my understanding, to bring me on the proper direction, So the contact with the scripture is good, but it has to be under the guidance of a competent and alive teacher. Shravana will raise a lot of questions. Manana is the process by which all questions and doubts are answered and cleared. And in this process, you need a live teacher. When the ignorance is gone, thus the mind and the body will continue, but the identification with the body-mind is gone. I not the problematic I. Then learn to detach from the body and mind and remain as pure consciousness. I am not the body-mind complex. The mind is part of the world. The body-mind is part of the world. The mind is subject to several problems. For some problems, there are remedies. For many problems, there are no remedies. Very interesting, huh? So we look into the mind. The mind may have some small problems, psychological problems, or cognitive problems maybe, and science and psychology may help us to improve our minds, or cure our minds of certain conditions. So the mind has some problems. Some problems can be, there are remedies, and for many problems, there are no remedies. Now, this is the most sad part when you get in contact with some certain people who have somehow neglected their minds for so long that you see this mind is going to need another birth. It's bound to suffer this life, and there's nothing that can, solve this problem. The mind has there are no remedies. I allow the body and the mind to go through the unavoidable, choiceless problems. And also we can look from a different angle. And there are some problems that are no problems of the mind that have no remedy, such as what? Oh, I'm 95 years old and I lost a good chunk of my memory and I can't focus very well anymore. And my mind goes into sleep very often and easily. So those are problems that are due to old age, and there is nothing we can do about that as well. That Atma, that self, is always free. I do not need to work for the freedom of the body and or the energy, sakshi, or shakti, sakshi, or consciousness, or energy. I do not need to work for freedom of the body or the sakshi. Okay, I don't know why he brought sakshi, but the body can never be free, and the sakshi was never bound. Oh, sakshi here goes to consciousness. Shakti, I mix up. Sometimes I do this. Shakti is energy, and sakshi is consciousness. Sakshi, Chaitanya. I do not need to work for the freedom either of the body or the sakshi. Why I do not need to work for the freedom of sakshi? Can you tell me?
Because it's always free.
Excellent.
Already free, yes.
Yeah, it's already free, so I don't need to do anything. I just need to understand it. The body can never be free, and sakshi was never bound. What should I work for? I do not need to work for anything. Okay. This is a dangerous statement. I need to work in preparing my mind to the point for that understanding that I do not need to work for anything, but I need to work in refining, preparing, and developing certain qualifications. I do not need to work for anything to realize that I am free, limitless consciousness. I should learn to abide as consciousness and see everything in mithya as it is. This is called samyak darshanam. I have never seen this one. When the difference between sakshi and the body mind is clear and evident, that samsara transferred from the body mind to consciousness goes. It's like when I understand the crystal as the ever clear crystal and the red flower as the ever red flower. I will not transfer the redness to the crystal, even though the crystal will continue to appear red. Because I put the crystal next to the vase of red flowers. No, it's going to keep, but I understood. I'm not making that confusion anymore. No? Other examples are the sun appearing to rise and set, the earth appearing flat, and the earth appearing to be stationary. There is no change in the appearance, but the change is in my knowledge, understanding. Once in this understanding, my changeless, free, and independent nature as Sakshi Chaitanya is clear, samsara is gone, goes away, and I can enjoy whatsoever. Prarabdha karma still is on my account. Okie dokie. Thank you for giving me a few more minutes to conclude the verse 17. We meet again next Monday. And big hugs, big thanks for all of you for your support. Okay. And we meet again. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my dear friends and students. We meet again next Monday. Namaste. Arrivederci. Goodbye.
Ciao, thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, Salinda. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.